Good morning and welcome to the AI Executive Morning Buzz. It's so good to be back. This is your go-to live broadcast for real-time AI insights, industry trends, and executive level analysis. And as we always promise, without the hype. I'm your host, Albert Ramos. And of course, we're here with my co-hosts, Nick James and Jason Hess. We're going to jump right in. We have three amazing topics, and we might sneak in some other ones. Today, we're going to talk about OpenAI's big payday. We're going to switch gears then into the medical field, where we have some AI tools out there that are improving patient diagnosis. I know people are really excited to hear about that. Apple's back on the scenes. We'll talk about their new health coach. It sounds like Microsoft is also playing in the game as well, my favorite. So why don't we kick it off with OpenAI? I know people are out there getting their workout on, sipping some coffee, doing their thing this morning, and we can't wait to have you listen in on what we have going on. So let's start with OpenAI. They are raising $40 billion. The new valuation gets up to $300 billion. And so I'll kick it over to Jason. You've done a lot of research. By the way, where are you, Jason? It sounds like you're having some fun this weekend.
We're on location doing a little bit of AI consulting in other countries, looking to integrate our avatar AI into historical sites where they can have a interactive conversation and understand more about the historical context. So it's really great. Once we finalize the deal, we'll share a little bit more. But yeah, it's been a good week so far.
I love it. And I have you on my phone locator here, and it's saying you're on a Aruba. Are you kidding me? Are you going to take us?
Budget's a little tight for all three of us to go.
Exactly. Thanks, Nick. Well, OpenAI, Jace, huge valuation, but really, when we're talking about let's reduce price, here comes OpenAI and say, yeah, sure, and we're going to raise more and lift up the val. $40 billion. I mean, Altman is smiling. So is the rest of the team because they get to do a lot more.
Well, they do get a lot more, but the two major things that they focus on with this evaluation is data center expansion and then the AI tools development. And so let's talk a little bit about data expansion. So with NVIDIA releasing out the new Blackwell GPUs, that actually has to transform your data centers. So they go from being air cooled to liquid cooled. So it's not just you roll in this new rack of servers and you can just plug it in and it works in your normal distribution. You've got to change your entire HVAC system. You've got to change how you're routing and wiring. And now you've got to have water cooled solutions instead of just the air handler solutions. So I think a lot of where this money is going to is being able to take advantage of these new Blackwell GPUs that are going to provide significant performance value, but it also comes with a rework of the data centers and how the data centers work. So I think that's where a lot of the cost is going to go for that. So it's not going to be just all profit for them. It's a pure profit play. They've got a lot of work to be able to start taking advantage of these new servers.
So data infrastructure, data centers, we've been hearing a lot about that since the beginning of the year. We saw some recent headliners. I don't know if you all saw it, and we'll jump to Nick on the strategic side, but they said the chips are melting. So we need to find a way to cool these chips, to cool these data centers. Nick, on the strategic side, right, when we think about scaling this, what are your thoughts on this big funding? I'm sure we're going to hear some more, right? Here comes DeepSeek, I'm sure, with some funding and some others, right? I'm sure Elon will want to get on the headliners as he always does. Thoughts on the strategic side of this?
Yeah, I think strategically, when you see a lot more funding, it really comes down to reliability and security. The hopes and I guess the desires of a company that would receive this kind of funding is they would invest in infrastructure that's reliable regardless of scale, and that they invest in security. So I'd say from a strategic standpoint, this is obviously a very healthy indicator of a company that's gained so much market share. I mean, it reached a million users in under a week, and it is the most used app in the App Store and in AI in general.
And it's got 500 million weekly users right now, which is mind blowing.
Yeah, and So I would say that there is a space for OpenAI. There are use cases that OpenAI should be used for, but we should not throw the baby out with the bathwater and say go all in on OpenAI. There are still a lot of other alternatives.
Right.
There are private alternatives. We're going to be getting into healthcare on the second topic. That's a great space to talk about how do we leverage private inference or private AI
Yeah.
to safeguard our data.
I
We
also
actually
saw in
just.
my
Oh, go ahead.
field today, or my feed today, that there is a tell-all book coming out with OpenAI about
Oh,
the
yes.
when they ousted Sam Altman for the week.
I
A lot
remember
of
that.
misconduct allegations and things like that. So that's supposed to be the book's supposed to be released in May. I think it's called The Optimist: Sam Altman, OpenAI, and the Race for the Future.
I'll tell you, he's the optimist because, yeah, they put him on the bench and then he somehow turned it around and used it as leverage and got a bigger payday, bigger leadership role,
But
I guess you could say.
that's a lot. That's a lot of theatrics, guys. You know, we gotta be careful not to get distracted by Silicon Valley theater.
Yeah, good point.
There is an entertainment component to this, but at the end of the day, we need to stay focused on what's right, the right fit for our use cases and for our company.
Yeah,
At the and frankly, you know who's making all the money at the end of the day, right? The infrastructure players. I
right.
mean, nobody's really paying a whole lot of attention when big news headlines come out like this. Are they buying computers? Of course they are. How do they achieve scale and reliability? It's by buying more GPUs, right? So I think that um, focusing on who is providing the compute, who's providing the power, who's providing the data center shells. These are all downstream markets, or I would say upstream markets to funding like this.
Yeah, no, good point. Just to summarize this, and we'll switch gears into the healthcare side of things. I know a lot of people are interested in hearing more about that, not only personally, but just a big space to invest in, especially in Texas, right? But I really like number one, excited for OpenAI, great funding. I hope we hear more from the other players on funding. I'm sure it's happening behind the scenes, just not a headline yet. But what I'm liking is the competition. We know from use, right? It puts some downward pressure on pricing, right? There's some scalability, and then there's new features, which the technology gets better and better, and that's great for all of us, right? Including the enterprises that we work with and work with as far as like integration, and so we're excited about that. So switching gears into the healthcare space, Jason, it sounds like AI is getting even better and finding its way not only with hospitals but doctors, private practices, etc. It's helping with precision when it comes to how to diagnose exactly what someone is dealing with. Have you done some research on that, and why don't you share it with us?
Yeah, so this is actually the opposite play from the OpenAI side. So there's a lot of work right now taking the open source AI models and making a private model that works specifically for a use case. In healthcare, they have to protect their data. They've got, I think HIPAA laws. If you have a
Right.
HIPAA issue, it's like 10,000 or $100,000 for each issue. So they cannot just use OpenAI, and there's not a private deployment unless you're on Azure and you're building it yourself, and that takes a lot of engineering and architecture support to do this. So what people are doing is starting to use these open source model like Llama and be able to build their own infrastructure on prem that is able to secure that and be able to do this. And what we're seeing is it's able to get the same type of value, but really for a specialized LLM and be able to solve these types of use cases for patient diagnostics. And I see this is where things are going to start going as more people keep pushing into the OpenAI and Claude for general purpose use. The specialized use is really going to have these private models that are hyper focused on specific problems.
Yeah, I think from a hospital perspective, typically a very legacy driven manual, although it's getting better, right? Where the scribe has become the transcriber, right? And we're starting to see a lot of that in the ecosystem. The hospitals are getting more efficient, and I think CFOs, and I speak to a lot of them that are CFOs of hospitals. I mean, the pressure to reduce costs, especially in their ancillary departments and then their bread and butter, reducing costs because a lot of them are not making a lot of money. Although we're building more hospitals, and we see that a lot in Texas, if you actually lift up the hood of their financials, they're not doing too hot. And it's pretty interesting to see. But we're finding that this technology, right, great timing, can reduce a lot of their ancillary costs across the board or per patient experience. Nick, from a strategic point, thoughts on this one?
This comes down to finances, right? I mean, this comes down to improving patient care and reducing the cost of patient care. So if we go just backwards a little bit, and I'm trying to tie in that first topic and this second topic, we got to look at the unifying sort of the bridge between these two topics is total cost of ownership, right?
Mm,
When you have OpenAI and other providers that are public language models, right? You really are able to gain the cost efficiency of just making an API call out to them. So, what's really important when it comes down to privacy considerations and confidentiality considerations is putting together a multi model strategy, meaning that there are parts of your application that don't necessarily need the protections of a private model and that can leverage the cost efficiencies of using a public model like OpenAI or Anthropic or Grok. But then there are other parts of your application that you know for a fact private data or private healthcare information, PHI, or personal healthcare information, excuse me, will be traversing or in those prompts or in that infrastructure, those need to be hitting those private models. So strategically, I think building a strategy that supports multiple different models based on the use case is going to be really important to balance the cost of security and confidentiality and privacy along with the total cost of ownership. So together in unison, we can, hospital networks and healthcare systems can deliver and pass forward the cost savings onto the patients themselves.
And I think this is a play for not just hospitals and PA, anything that any company that is regulated or highly regulated, they're going to have to come up with this. It all comes down to the user experience and how do you train your employees to be able to know when to use a private model, when to use a public model. We still see challenges with companies that still are clicking on links and opening things up that probably shouldn't be doing. So it does come down to a training aspect also when you give them multiple options to use. So
yeah.
we're going to have to figure out what the best route is for a company as they start this journey.
From a business model perspective, I wanted to get both of your thoughts on this. And you all know I'm pretty familiar with hospitals, right? And a big thing for them is the census, right? Is not only how many rooms, but what's the traffic, right? Are we filling these rooms? And that's where
Yeah.
a lot of people don't think about it, but that truly is where the dollars are at. But what's interesting is there has been a shift since 2020, but more recently over the last couple of years, you're seeing this at-home care percentage significantly rise. So your in-hospital census is dropping. That's a big issue. That's a big issue for the hospitals and their profitability. However, they can be more efficient. That's what they're trying to figure out, and I think that's where someone like our organization, White Glove, can really help. How are you all thinking AI is going to help this at home healthcare? And for me, I think partnerships, because I don't think these hospitals can do it themselves. And when I say partnerships, I'm talking about labs, I'm talking about analytics, I'm talking about, well, we already see the virtual and sometimes avatar. Well, I say sometimes because I'm thinking in the future, but I'm seeing this virtual, what do you call it, physician. Let's put it that way, right? Your virtual healthcare. Teledoc. There we go. I was trying to spit that one out.
Teledoc. Yeah. Yeah.
Teledoc. I just got over flu A, y'all. Just get. I'm trying to drink some. I'm trying to be healthier. My brain's still. All right. So Teledoc. What are your thoughts about that? You have this at-home healthcare. You no longer need to go to the hospital. So it's kind of an interesting business model that we're seeing here. This tech may improve which side of the experience, maybe all of it, the whole ecosystem. I know I'm throwing a lot out there, but I'm curious
Well, I
about
think
y'all's
this is
thoughts.
something, yeah, this is something that we've seen since COVID, that traditional places that required you to be in the office to go to a physical location all was disrupted. You're able to
Right.
now have a teledoc. You can now have court proceedings for low threat things like traffic stops or things like that, all over Zoom now. So I think this is where the market is seeing opportunities of I don't need to always have an in-person capability. I don't need to disrupt my day and drive 30 minutes to the doctor's office, to the lawyer, to the courthouse, whatever the case may be. I can now do that as a part of my day. And it's just, okay, let me just go get a room and be able to have that conversation. So I think we're seeing that. And I think that is one of the positive things that came out of COVID. There's very
Yeah.
few of those, I think.
I think this comes down to executives really laying it out on the table on the difference between a preference and a requirement. Okay. It's really important because what is actually required, like as Jason said, COVID uncovered that, let's say, for example, traffic court, like what is actually required, what actually needs the physical presence of that person in court versus being virtual
Oh,
on Zoom.
the worst.
So I think laying out what our preferences and our perhaps cultural preferences within your company versus what you actually have to adhere to based on regulations or your internal policies, and even potentially question those, because sometimes policies have smatterings of cultural preferences embedded into them, right? I think we can definitely have a homogeneous sort of hybrid teledoc model. Our avatars now can see, so we can have full FaceTime like experiences where the avatars can now see you, see
Right.
your condition. They can determine sort of your emotional presence, and it can determine your sentiment based on sort of micro expressions on your face. So there's a lot of things that these avatars can do up front from a check-in standpoint, really reducing the time needed with the actual, you know, expensive doctor or PA that needs to come on. So I think that we can definitely achieve a hybrid model where the initial check-in experience can be handled by an avatar, and then the avatar can report its experience to the doctor before the doctor comes on a teledoc visit, which can definitely be applied in home healthcare.
I'll tell you. So while I was laying there sweating this bad boy out this weekend, having flu A is what they call it, I just needed a lovely lady with a white knitted sweater. Her name's Gloria. The white glove A. I swear. I swear. I'm like, I'm gonna try this and just see like, is this normal? So I'm gonna go to Gloria, and it's nice to just have a face to face where I'm normally using Chat GPT text or voice. Right? There's something that just reminds me about someone I spoke to in the recruiting space that's doing all recruiter agents, and they're just doing voice. And I said, that's awesome, but there's something about the human experience like this when you can see someone, right? And Gloria, it's so funny, just like the immersive VR world, eventually your brain, it just, it flips. It doesn't need to understand whether they're real or not. It feels like it's in a real environment. So Gloria becomes now truly for me, and maybe it was because I was 104-degree fever or something. She becomes real, and I'm like, I'm just talking to a real lady. She's my doc at this point, and she's giving me great advice. I think. I mean, I'm better now, so she did a good job. So speaking of coaches or hyper personalization, here
Mhm.
they come, Apple. Apple with all the cash, Apple with the health coach. So they're coming out with a hyper personalized healthcare or health coach to help people out. Jason, I'm sure you've done a lot of research here on the Apple ecosystem, the Apple health coach. I'm excited about because they have a lot of data. So I'm really excited about this. I was wondering when this was coming. And here it is, the Apple health coach.
Yeah, yeah. So Apple has announced that they've got a new health coach with all the data that they're pulling in from the wearables technology. They're able to start giving you customized health suggestions based on all that information you're having. So they're utilizing machine learning, natural language processing to be able to provide this and still have that security that's already built in that you can then do, you can keep, you can share with your doctor to be able to do this, and this will be integrated into a future iOS update. So it'll give you the ability to have more information from your. I see everybody wearing iWatches now. It's such an easy way to capture a lot of that information that you can now be able to share. It does raise some privacy concerns, but Apple is doing a very good job of focusing on security for the past 3 to 5 years. So I think this will just be built into their ecosystem, and you can share the data with your doctor, with your physical therapist, with your personal trainer, whoever needs that to be able to give you some more advice, and it will provide that coaching also. So it'll be a virtual coach to help you through your health journey.
This is interesting, Nick. I want to get your on the strategic, right, and forward looking. I mean, since 2020, right, the sensitivity, right, and the importance of health is obviously through the roof. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? Healthcare. I'm talking about fitness, health, wellness, longevity is a big thing. There, Apple has something going on here, and they have years and years of data because people have been tracking their heart rate to HRV to
Sleep
their
schedules.
sleep schedule to their food. I mean, you can log things in for those that are using those features. This is an interesting play, and again, I was curious about when they were going to do this. It's here now, and again, though, just flying under the radar, right? Good old Apple. Thoughts on this, Nick?
Yeah, I'm getting senses of what we were talking about before the show, market consolidation.
Right.
I feel like this is becoming more and more popular, and Microsoft really championed this concept of extend, embrace, and extinguish. In the early '90s, when or throughout the 2000s, when big companies like Microsoft would find innovative startups doing something that they couldn't reasonably reproduce, they would extend a hand, bring them in, embrace them, and then squeeze them for long enough in many different ways, perhaps through an acquisition or through simply bringing them closer to get a peek under the hood. And then the last step is extinguish. So extend, embrace, extinguish has taken a different form, but we're starting to see a lot of that happening here in the AI industry where startups will start doing something very innovative, and then a company like OpenAI will release a feature, and this has happened quite a few times. OpenAI's Dev Day last year in April, they announced Assistants, which was supposed to take over these chatbot sort of RAG-based chatbots. And I would say that yesterday I was reading an article that there are a few companies out there that track all of the different AI apps. There's an AI for that.com. There's dang.ai. And dang.ai reported that about 60% of the apps that they had listed since they started are now out of business. It's because market consolidation, that sort of that concept proves that larger incumbents will eventually develop features in their larger product that will extinguish entire startup companies. And so I'm coming back to Apple and what they're doing with this health coach. I hope that it continues to be in keeping with the Apple ecosystem play, because right now I use a few apps to track my caloric consumption, my workouts, and they all ask for access to my Apple Health data.
Right.
Now, when I do a workout or I take a picture of something I'm eating, all of that gets reported back to that central sort of that Apple Health ecosystem, and basically all of my data is stored in that central repository. Now it looks like they're leveraging those years of data to create something that may potentially displace some of the startups that have been working on this for some time. So I fear for some startups. I look forward to seeing what project they're calling it Project Mulberry
Yeah, it's an
brings about.
interesting
But
name.
I do have a little bit of disappointment from Apple Intelligence and the fail of that release. So I'm going to approach this with cautious optimism.
Well, you all know how I feel about Apple and love me some Microsoft, and obviously switch gears to this Samsung flip foldable situation here. I'm taking a different approach. I think they're, because of the tremendous amount of data, Apple has a big win here. And I think from the extinguish piece, right, which is the last portion of Microsoft's approach and what a lot of these big players are doing, I think a lot of startups, like, you can continue to invest. We all know it's a risk, right? And your big hope is that you make it big. Your other hope is if you don't, you get swallowed, purchased, bought, right? We saw it from Poppy. We saw Siete Chips from Pepsi. So there's great examples where you want to get bought by these large organizations because it's a big payday, and it's just like hopefully they keep us on the leadership team. So I'm excited about Apple. I think the data is there. I'm really excited because I know there's a lot of fitness organizations, again, a huge industry, and we're going to actually have a big player. And I'll just throw it out there from Orange Theory, not the corporate brand, but a franchise private equity brand, who uses a lot of this data tech and actually integrates with Apple. There's something bigger going on here, and I can't wait to see what they do with this. I think from a personal perspective, people are going to be taken care of, or we're going to get information a lot quicker, and as we were mentioning, diagnostics. But I think from an Apple play, this is a huge vertical for them. So,
And I
Jason,
think
thoughts
there's still
before
some
we?
market opportunity there. They have not tapped into the ring, like the Aura rings or the
Right.
Galaxy ring. That's collecting even more data because iWatches you've got to charge, and they're off your body for a couple hours. These rings are there 5-6 days of battery life. Takes 30 minutes to charge, so you can charge it during the shower. I think that's going to be the next
But
play that I see them.
the rings report back to Apple Health data.
It does, but it's
Yeah,
not in. It's in the ecosystem, but it's not an Apple product yet. So I think there's an
Right.
Apple product waiting to be released.
I think, but this is a data consolidation play, don't you think so? Like the Apple Health Coach, it's
Yeah.
it's
No.
riding on top of all the data that other devices have collected and reported back to Apple,
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's kind of actually our topic two and topic three. If you think about it, there's something bigger going on here. I do think, yeah, you're right. Market consolidation for sure, right? Data consolidation, the Apple play. But like I said, from a healthcare medical perspective, we're moving away from these large big box hospitals, beautiful large square footage,
Mhm.
but people don't like them, right? They
Yeah.
want to be conveniently taken care of and pampered at home. There's
Yep.
something going on here, and I think this, for those that want to play in this space and invest in this space, there's something at the
The,
at
the,
home healthcare.
the at home was more of a convenience. Now it's going to become more of a necessity
Yeah.
because frankly, a lot of these hospitals just cannot handle the volume that they sometimes they get, especially in different metroplexes
Right. Look at
throughout the United
Texas. It's
States.
massive.
Yeah, it's massive. And sometimes I have a hospital right next to my house, and I would say probably 2 to 3 times a week there's a helicopter flying in. It has a helipad on the top of the hospital. It's because we're sort of in North McKinney, and anything north of us, there is no major hospital there,
Right.
right? So imagine us being able to distribute the ability to provide healthcare into these rural areas in the home. I think it'd be fascinating and I think that's the direction we're headed in here is this distributed healthcare model.
You're right, and I think actually, and we're playing in it, and we're going to keep playing in it. Right, White Glove AI and our tools. Here's where I see it, Nick, Jason. Actually, as I think about it more, because you guys got me fired up now, because I keep talking about just closing this ecosystem. We talk a lot about it in the retail space too, but Apple with its data consolidation, with its at-home experience, right? Your home now becomes, when needed, a hospital, if you want to call it that, at-home hospital.
I
But
don't know
how does it
hospital yet. I think clinic. I don't
clinic?
think
There you go.
you're
Yeah,
going to.
boutique clinic. How does it connect to your refrigerator? How does it connect to your bed? How does it connect to X, Y, your shower, your whatever? Like I think there's something going on here where at home, it's a little scary because it becomes too convenient, but also safe because you get data right away. You get a diagnosis right away. You get labs sent to you overnight, etc.
Then
I'm
you give up privacy, like
correct. Yeah. So that was gonna be
always
my
trade
last. That
off.
was gonna be my last point. The
Yeah.
trade off is, yeah, it's like 23andMe. I'm like, dang it, why did I do that? I love the feedback, but now they have everything.
Yep.
Um, but that's even in outside of the medical space. I was just chatting with someone recently, and like the currency nowadays is your data. So interesting. But is it the price we pay for better health span,
Convenience.
longevity, right?
Yep.
So interesting. All right. Well, I know we got to wrap it up. We're a little over time here. Thanks so much. That's it for the AI Executive Morning Buzz. Nick, Jason, always a pleasure. Samantha, behind the scenes, always keeping us in check. We appreciate it. Today we went over OpenAI's big funding day. I can't wait to hear about the other players. They're coming out here over the next couple of days or so, or a week. We also spent a lot of time in the medical healthcare space, even the hyper personalized Apple Health Coach approach here. And we finished off talking about how is this going to connect the ecosystem. And if you're looking for a place to invest with White Glove, there's a place to integrate AI and at home. So we're excited to see what happens there. But thank you so much. As always, we say stay innovative, stay curious. We'll see you every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. Central. Thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
Happy April Fools.
Happy April Fools.